Hi everyone, I'm Laura with Annie's Creative Studio, and I am a very new quilter. Like, I have done 2 little baby blankets and 1 jelly roll quilt, and that's it. So I have decided that I'm going to make our buffalo, what's it called? Reversible buffalo plaid rag quilt. Because I have a friend who's turning 50, and I just think he would really love this. So red and black, I assume, are his favorite colors because he wears it all the time. So I thought, all right, I'm gonna make it red and black. So if you make this pattern, you will quickly find out that you have to cut, it feels like a million of these squares. I don't know how those quilters do it who cut these little teeny tiny, 2-inch by 2-inch squares. These were 6-inch by 6-inch, and it's flannel. So it was really fun, tedious but fun. But one thing I found is that my plaid fabric is actually thicker than my solid. So I don't think it's going to affect the quilt. Pardon the motorcycle, we've got some excited young men out there, I think. Anyway, so when you buy your fabric, you might want to check to make sure the thicknesses are the same. I was in a bit of a hurry, so I just decided to cross my fingers and hope that it will all turn out. So I've got all my 6-inch squares cut out and pieced, except you can see my last row is missing a square. And so I have to cut just one more square, which is a little annoying. It's a sad story, but my sewing machine, when I was doing the red, got all jammed up. So I had to switch to another sewing machine, and I left my fabric somewhere else. So anyway, I'll finish that later. So I need to press my strips. So come on with me. So the pattern says to finger press these, and you can do that and it lays kind of flat, but I'm A-type enough that I'm going to press them, but because it's flannel, you don't want to have it on a high setting because it'll melt. So I'm going to just put mine on a kind of a medium setting. And I just want to press these seams open because then it'll be easier to sew together. So I'm just going to press them a little bit. And I know you're not supposed to like shovel or whatever they call it with the iron, but I don't know. I don't worry too much about all those rules. So I'm just going to press them open. And when it's done, all the seams go on top, which is really going to be cool. And then when you wash the quilt, well, first you have to cut all these seams. There's some special set of scissors that I don't own, but apparently there's a set of scissors that will cut these in little tiny, like 1/4-inch little fringe things. And I think I'm probably gonna buy those scissors because if I had to cut each of these by a 1/4-inch for over 200 squares, I don't think my friend would get this quilt until he turns 60. So I'm probably going to look for those scissors. It mentions which kind they are in the pattern, so you can look there. So here is my piece all pressed. And now we'll go over here. And I actually started to pin 2 more pieces together. So you follow the placement diagram, and you can see when it's right sides up, the plaid is alternating and then the solids are alternating, but you do 1 row of red and then you do a row of black. And you're going to want all the seams to be on the same side. So you put right sides together and line them up the best as you can. And I want my blocks my seams to line up like that when we're done. That's the ideal, instead of, off a 1/4 inch like that, which would just not look so good. So what I did, I set my pieces down and I'm just lining them up, and I'm starting in the middle. And let me just take these out and do it again. So see, I've got my 2 seams here lined up. See how nice that is? So I'm putting those together, and then I'm going to pin each side of that seam, because there is a lot of fabric here. Each of these squares is actually a double layer. So we've got 2 layers of black, 2 layers of plaid, 2 more layers of black, and 2 more layers of plaid. So we've got 8 layers here just in that one little seam. So I'm going to pin the pants off this length so that none of my seams hopefully will move. So I'm going to hold that down and pin that side. And I'm going to pin that side. Sewing the squares together was really easy. I just turned on my TV and you sew them with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And I have never done anything with that much of a seam allowance. You know, everything's usually a 1/4 inch seam. But I just found the mark on the sewing machine and stuck to it, and it seemed like it really worked out pretty well. And I think that's just so that you end up with this bigger than usual excess or seam allowance, that then when you snip it, it'll turn into that pretty chenille look. Okay, so that's that side of it. We'll just do a few more. My friend's mother is a quilter, and I know she has made him a quilt before that was probably like a work of art compared to this, but I think he will appreciate the fact that I'm just a newbie quilter and made this for him. There were a lot of really super cute flannels at the fabric store, and I thought about getting like something that was more I guess cartoony for this to replace the plaid, but I don't know. If I was making it for a kid, there were a lot of options. It's a little hard to do something for an adult that's too cartoony. It would just have to be just right. So I think the plaid will be nice. It's kind of a classic pattern, and this will keep him cozy during the winter months. Okay, so I've got it all pinned. So now I'm going to sit at the machine, turn on the machine, put on my glasses, and hopefully the machine will not decide this is the moment to give me grief. I'm borrowing this machine, and I'll tell you what, it's a sweetheart of a machine. It's a Bernina. Okay, so I'm gonna line it up right here at my 1/2 inch mark and just pop it in there and put it down. I'm not bothering to backstitch because I guess just because I'm either lazy, but my hope is that it'll just be covered up in the binding. So I'm all the way at the edge. So I will just give it a whirl. I'm not sure why the machine's not going. Hang on. That's so weird. All right. Technical difficulties. Let me turn it off and try to turn it back on and see what's going on. It figures, right? As soon as the camera is rolling, it decides to misbehave. Especially after I was singing its praises too. That hardly seems fair, huh? There we go. Okay, let's see if it works. No. Oh. You know what was the deal? My pedal wasn't pushed in all the way. I'm actually very relieved because I thought, what is going on? See, I told you I was a newbie. I wasn't kidding you. Okay. All right, now we're rolling. So I'm just going to kind of guide it through and try to stay on that 1/2 inch mark. Now I've sewn a couple of these together, and what I found is when I got to this seam, like I said, there's 8 layers. So I get the foot like right up to that seam, and I pull out the pins, and then I'm just going to kind of hold it steady with my fingers. You don't want your seam to flip. See, mine started to flip there. Stubborn little thing. So I'm just going to lay it down, make sure it behaves, and then I'm just going to go right on over. And just truck along. I'm coming up on another seam. I'm going to pull out these pins again and make sure these little tips go underneath the tip of the presser foot. And you can hear it. It has to work hard to get through those multiple layers of the flannel. But if you've got a decent machine, it should be able to handle it okay. When I was learning to quilt, actually with Annie's Learn to Make a Quilt class by Nancy McNally, one of the things that she said was when you're going over a lot of thick seams like that, the #1 thing to do is just slow down. It's not a race. See, now I'm like way off my 1/2 inch there. So I'm gonna kind of try to ease back over, but I might have to sew that one again. We'll have to take a look at it. Because the fabric is so thick, I find that it does kind of want to move around more than just 2 layers of quilting cotton. So you have to kind of keep that in mind and guide it a little bit more than you might be used to. But I will tell you what, this flannel is so soft, and I think that when my kids see this quilt, I think they're going to be green with envy, and I think they're all going to be begging me to make a quilt for them just like it. They'll probably want some of that novelty flannel fabric though, with the funky prints and so forth. And you know, I'm a mom, so I will probably oblige my kids because that's what we moms do, right? So I'm getting to the end here. Those layers are not perfectly lined up. If I were doing a quilt like with half square triangles where I needed to get perfect points and all that, I think I'd be a lot fussier. Whereas this quilt, I think that the chenille, you know, when I do the chenille effect with the seam allowance, I think that's going to cover a multitude of my little quilting glitches. So, all right. So we've got it done. Let's see how I did. That one's off a little bit. That one's pretty good. Look at that. I think I get a gold star for that one. Ooh, that one's definitely a gold star. So yeah, I think this is not bad. That one's not so good, but we'll just ignore that one. And then when I flip it over, you can see that all my seams are on this side. So I think then I'll go back through and I'll press those seams open as well. And then I'm just gonna keep on sewing these, and then I'll finish my quilt. And if I can find those scissors, then I'll have to see if I can shoot a little bit of footage with cutting those little snips out of the fabric so I can show you how those work. So that's it. That's my buffalo plaid rag quilt. So I hope you make it. It's really fun. And like I said, it's super soft and cozy. So check it out on Annie's, and we have an episode on Annie's Creative Studio. So be sure to check it out. Take care. Have a good night.